Right, hello Year 8. So what we're going to do today is two things. We're going to finish off this topic of microorganisms by looking at useful microbes, and then you're going to spend the second part of the lesson revising because on Thursday I'm going to put together a little end of topic test for you to do. So the first thing you need to do is very quickly, I want you to take these four types of microorganism at the bottom here and rearrange them in size order. So quickly pause the tape and do that now, please. Okay, and this is what you should have got. So it would have been protozoa, then funguses or fungi, bacteria, and then the smallest are viruses. Okay, so were going to do an experiment which was going to really focus on fungus, okay, particularly one which should be very familiar, which is yeast, okay? But think about these foods for a moment. So you've got cheese, yogurt, bread, and Marmite. Now, what is it about these that they all have in common? Okay, well, the main thing that they all have in common is they all use microorganisms in their production. So, for example, cheese and bacteria are actually produced, cheese and yogurt are actually produced by bacteria, and Marmite and bread produced by yeast. Okay, and we're going to try and understand that process. So, the first thing I need you to do is, can you please pause the video and copy this into your book? Yeast is a living microscopic single-cell organism. It must respire to stay alive. And what sort of microorganism is it? Okay, so firstly, can you just draw that, copy that into your book. Pause the video and do that now, please. Okay, so welcome back. So yeast is a type of fungus, okay, and it must respire to stay alive. Now, for those of you that can remember, this is the chemical equation, or sorry, the word equation for respiration. Now, this is really important. So once again, you need this in your book. Now, all living things do respiration, okay? They all need to stay alive. What they do is they take sugar and react it with oxygen. They get energy, and the waste products are carbon dioxide and water. However, yeast can also do respiration in another way. However, let's start with that. So all organisms, including yeast, do this, okay? They use sugar and oxygen and give off carbon dioxide and water to get their energy. Okay, so pause the video and write that in, and maybe just draw a big star around it like they've done here so you know that it's important. Now, to give it its proper name, this kind of respiration is called aerobic because it involves something we get from the air, which is oxygen. Have a look at this for a moment. Glucose plus yeast gives energy, carbon dioxide, and ethanol, which we know as alcohol. Now, quick question. What's missing from this that was present in the last type of respiration? Okay, so those of you with a close eye will have spotted that actually there's no oxygen. So what sometimes happens is yeast are able to get their energy from just the glucose alone without oxygen. Okay, so essentially the word equation is, just slightly reorganize this, glucose gives us carbon dioxide, energy, and I'm just going to move this up, ethanol. Okay, so we just use the glucose and a chemical reaction happens. We still get carbon dioxide, but we don't get any water. We get alcohol and a little bit of energy out. Okay, so this is called anaerobic respiration. Okay, anaerobic respiration, commonly known as fermentation. And this is the process we use to make things like beer and wine. Okay, so what we do is there's glucose in things like grapes, the sugars. There's some yeast, we leave them there for a bit, and what they do is the yeast use the sugar, the glucose, and their waste product is a bit of carbon dioxide, They get their energy, but also their waste product, or one of their waste products, is not water but alcohol. Okay, and that's how we make this. So once again, can you pause the video and just draw this in? Okay, so fermentation is a type of anaerobic respiration, and it's glucose used without oxygen to give us carbon dioxide, alcohol, and a little bit of energy. Okay, so pause the video and do that now, please. So to sum up, yeast is a living, microscopic, single-cell organism that grows to convert food into alcohol and carbon dioxide. However, there is another process. Some of you might have realised that we don't use, we use yeast for bread making, but as a lot of you know, bread is not alcoholic. So how does this work? Well, we use the normal process. We give our yeast plenty of oxygen. So what we have is glucose plus oxygen gives us, speed this up, carbon dioxide plus water as a waste product plus energy. Okay, and there it is. So this process we use when we're making things like bread. Now, all organisms prefer this to anaerobic respiration because it's much more efficient. You get loads more energy from using oxygen. Okay, so carbon dioxide is given off, and we use that to help us raise the bread. So while in lockdown, I know some of you have started taking the baking and using bread, making your own bread. How does this work? So firstly, the carbon dioxide produced by the yeast for the dough to rise. So what you do is you have flour, there's your form of sugar. You add the yeast and a bit of water. To multiply and grow, all yeast needs is the right environment, which includes moisture, so a bit of water. You can see someone adding some water there. Food in the form of sugar, the actual flour, and a warm, nurturing environment. Okay, so once you make your dough with the yeast in yet there, the carbon dioxide that they make from respiration will cause your dough to expand outward because they are making or producing carbon dioxide. And that's what makes bread light and fluffy, because it's got all these little air bubbles in. So what I would like you to do is pause the video now and try to complete this fill in the blanks. Off you go, please. Okay, and there is your answer. Yeast is used in brewing to turn sugar, glucose, into alcohol. Okay, so if you didn't get that, write that in now, please. Okay, and to test your knowledge for a second time, try this one. Yeast is something is used in baking. The something, glucose, helps the yeast to something. Beginning with R, what is it? Okay, pause the video and try that one. Right, realised I gave the game away a bit on the first one. But yeast is used in baking. The sugar, glucose, helps the yeast to rise. Okay, so you've got an idea of what yeast is used for. These are some of the other microorganisms which are used in various things. So, just going through a few of these, if we want to make, for example, vitamin B12 to go in things like vitamin tablets, you need to use a microorganism called Streptomyces. That's used in vitamin supplements. If we want to produce lactic acid, we use Lactobacillus delabrueckii, which is used in things like chemical reagents. So things like testing kits, even some of the modern testing kits, like things like possibly for coronavirus, might use lactic acid. Citric acid, we use Aspergillus niger, which is a food preservative. Basically, it's the same kind of acid you find in lemons and limes. Okay, and it's because it's so acid, it stops bacteria from spoiling the food. And then we've got a few others which are here. So what I would like you to do is, I'm just going to pause the video one more time. I'd like to very quickly copy this table into your book. So these are the things which we make, the type of microorganisms, and all done in italics because that's their sort of Latin name. Okay, and then how we use them. Okay, so pause the video and do that now quickly, please. So over the course of this topic, we've really focused on microbes and how they can cause us harm, but not all microbes are harmful. So the simple answer to this is, are all microbes harmful? The answer is no, they're not. In fact, most do us no harm at all. We have microbes living inside our gut, which are really useful, not just useful, necessary for digestion. And without them, we would actually not be alive. Okay, so actually, a lot of microbes are really, really important. Okay, now the last thing I'd like to do is in assignments, there is a revision task which will help you with your preparation. And then next lesson, so on Thursday, I'm just going to do a test. Now, don't freak out. This isn't a major test. It's going to be about half an hour to 40 minutes long. And then I'll upload the answers at the end and you can check your own answers and then feed them back to me. Okay, so good luck. And as always, I'll be online if you need.